Okay, I believe that we are now live streaming. And just as a backup, I'm going to record our meeting, if that's okay.
Thank you. I am pulling up the agenda, but I'm going to just go by memory. We will start our Citizens Association Executive Committee meeting at 2:05 p.m. Charlie, can you please call roll?
Yes. Lisa Fliger?
Here.
Larry Klein?
Present.
Tina Walia?
Present.
Hung Wei? Margaret Abekoga? With 2 absences, we still have quorum.
Great. Do we have any public comment on non-agendized items?
No, none online.
And next, we will move to the first agenda item, which is our consent agenda, and is the only item, the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
Okay, any questions, comments? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve. Public comment.
Second.
Any public comment on the minutes?
No one's raised their hands online.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online apart from Holmesy?
No.
All right, thank you. And with that, we can do voice vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move to President update, and trying to discuss, and Margaret isn't here, and I don't know if you were able to give her a heads up, Shali, but we just wanted to give an update on the record on the BAFA bond. I think we all know what happened there. I will say the Citizens Association got a lot of kudos from nonprofits because they appreciated both the mayor's group and Citizens Association really stepping up. Just thanks to the Citizens Association, and I'll say it again at the board meeting later in September, because we also formed, as you know, a subcommittee, and they really appreciated that. Because we leaned in, and I think it shows the value, obviously, of the Citizens Association. Unfortunately, as you know, the ABAG and BAFA boards decided not to move forward with the bond measure in November for a combination of reasons, primarily because, some of the language was being challenged. There was a question about whether or not Proposition 5, which is changing the voting threshold for certain issues such as housing from 2/3 to simple majority, whether or not the focus needed to be on that first instead of trying to do it at the same time with the BAFA bond with limited resources, and both being challenged so heavily. So the decision was made for all those reasons, and I'm sure many other legal reasons, because there was a closed session held, not to have the BAFA bond on the November 2024 ballot. But it was very clear from the public statement that we're not saying we're not going to pursue the BAFA bond or some form of the BAFA bond in the near future, because I think there's a lot of support for the idea of having this huge $20 billion or large amount of funds for affordable housing in our 9 Bay Area account. And so the message to all cities in the 9 Bay Area account is stay tuned. Thanks for your engagement. One thing we learned from this, and now we all know about it, and if you weren't part of ABAG and MTC and BAFA, like Margaret and I were, or if you weren't staying on top of it like I know Larry was, we realized a lot of people just didn't know about it, right? They didn't know it existed, and they didn't know the detail. And that in and of itself, to be honest, would have been a challenge. The polling, so there are 9 Bay Area counties, as you know, Santa Clara County being one of them, and we have the largest tax base. And so they would have needed us to help carry this bond, and we were polling the lowest, right? Oh. Even assuming we're able to win Prop 5 and get down to the simple majority, well, 55%, Santa Clara County was polling at, I think, 46%, the last internal poll. Other counties, Alameda, they were, polling higher. So on average, I think we had hit that 55%, but Santa Clara County, we would have had a lot of work to do. So lesson learned, as soon as we know they decide to move forward with this again. And let me just quickly say, the Cities Association has not endorsed the bond measure. I'm just, if this is something that moves forward, regardless of your position on it, it's something we need to get engaged in sooner rather than later. Because I think that was one of the concerns, as Larry knows, it would have been so crunched to do the education and the engagement within 3 months in Santa Clara County. And we had no idea what was happening in the other county. Anything to add, Larry?
No, I think, and I think that was the biggest takeaway, is at least carrying on this conversation, and hopefully BAFA has learned, MTC's learned, as well as, I think definitely I heard the same appreciation from the housing advocates and different nonprofits. And, it's like, okay, having this discussion as opposed to the rubber stamp, and hearing some of the concerns about, the not so successful components of 2016 Measure A has been actually an interesting portion of this conversation. So it's like, okay, it's like, yes, we need to fund, these sorts of items, but you can't just assume that we will go blindly through every bond measure without better, let's say, transparency or at least partnership, I think it becomes the thing.
I want to thank you both for your leadership on this. We were here in the subcommittee meeting in May, and we were talking about these concerns and how quickly this thing moved forward, and then with a sudden about turn. I mean, we were there early this month on the 8th of August at our board meeting in Morgan Hill, where we had the subcommittee. So really a lot of energy. What I feel is, I want to emphasize, bold, underline what Larry's last sentence was, that people who are driving this bond, I somehow feel they were so focused on their timeline and that they kept on missing that for about a year, tentatively, we, the elected officials in our county, I was hearing that sense, getting that sense that we were saying there is more information we need. And it happens in most places. I'm not saying that anything was done ignoring it intentionally, but the lesson learned, I really, really hope that they know that this is fundamentally important, especially when Santa Clara County is the largest tax base, and intuitively people will want more results. Largest tax base correlates with two other things. Our county has not just more money, but also people who will look at the specifics more. They need more data. They will. And they are also aware that they are paying more, but not getting the results of it, while simultaneously getting hammered by the state on other housing things. This is something we work on the Legislative Action Committee. That was the piece missing in my mind, not from us, but about whoever was organizing them. It's a critical element, and I hope they don't miss it if they were to proceed.
No, appreciate the feedback and comments, and we heard some of that at the board meeting as well. And I think they have heard it. I've talked to so many ABAC staff members, they have heard it. They value Santa Clara County, I actually think, for many reasons, obviously, to your point. And you had great advocates, and not just we had Cindy, Margaret, and myself as part of the team. And even though it wasn't apples to apples where we were getting how much, because it's a regional issue, I mean, it's a regional solution, right? And so even though we may be putting in more, we're not getting the exact equivalent back. We view it as a regional solution, and we're helping each other, because what happens in, homelessness crowd doesn't have a border. But I will say the advocacy from your Santa Clara County representatives to make sure that we got a bigger piece of the pie was effective, right? Because we would. Between San Jose and Santa Clara County, we were going to get 4.6 billion. The other counties were in. So it's not apples to, it was not the equivalent of what we're putting in, but we definitely were getting a bigger slice of that. But well received, that's the feedback they've heard. And I expect more engagement, more transparency if they decide earlier, they even add earlier engagement, once they decide what they're going to do next. So we'll keep you posted.
As far as the county meeting on Tuesday? I see nothing on the agenda.
Yeah, I think
So,
Susan and I should, so I communicated with Susan, and that's my impression too. That it's not gonna move forward.
It's not that meeting.
Confirm for us, please, Shali,
Okay.
that the county will not have the buffer item on their Tuesday agenda, because remember initially they were gonna have it as an item and invite us to speak.
I didn't see it, but the way they term some items sometimes is,
And it's a long
yeah,
agenda.
it's like 115 items, 121 items on the agenda, so I'm looking for, I'm looking at BAFA, but who knows if they called it something else. Yeah,
Is the mayor's meeting not happening also? I thought there was a meeting with the mayors about.
It's the same thing.
that's the same thing. So they wanted us to come to the meeting on the 27th.
So
Okay.
they invited the mayors and a representative from Citizens Association, which would have been me. But we were only going to be speaking for the regular public comment time.
Okay.
Because it was an item, what they were going to do again, when the president decided she was gonna agendize this, it was to discuss the local expenditure plan, how they were gonna approach it, right? Because they had presumed the bond was gonna go forward. And so based on the mayor's letter and then the Citizens Association letter, she invited us to speak while, public comment.
It would be good, so when you check with staff,
Yeah.
it would be nice if Susan sent an email to everybody that she invited to the 27th meeting to say, we removed it because of what happened. It should come from her, not from us bugging them and then telling all the mayors. It should be a follow-up from her when it comes down to it.
Right.
But that's my
Yeah.
I could very politely ask if such a thing could be done.
I could also ask you this, but I get what Larry's saying, like a formal response since we did formal letters.
But she did a formal invite, so I was like,
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments on, this is the update, but I also touched on BAFA, which Margaret isn't here, so we can actually see if there's any public comment and skip the next item, which is the BAFA. Right?
There's no public comment online.
Either, anybody here was waiting for the BAFA item? Nope. And then what's after BAFA? Now I'm lost, I forgot.
Oh, sorry.
Joint powers formation update.
Oh,
Basically, did you have any updates? Because it's like, we're looking at the president.
Well, no, the only update I was planning, was the BAFA update. I can't think of
we're
anything else.
gonna talk about Gilroy? No, okay.
Yeah.
So this is Andrews, the anti-harassment policy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I just want to touch base on a couple sort of still to-do items relating to the formation of our JPA. So you may recall that one of the things that we had planned on doing for some time, even before the formation of JPA formally, was the adoption of an anti-harassment policy for the organization. And I apologize that these materials were sent to you relatively late before the meeting, and I certainly understand if you hadn't had time to digest those. But we did go ahead and draft an anti-harassment policy for your consideration. And if you feel appropriate, you can provide comments now or forward to the board, or if you want to come back, because again, I realize these materials are sent to you on short notice, please let us know. The anti-harassment policy was based on a similar policy adopted by the town of Los Gatos. As you know, Los Gatos is kind of the touch point for us in terms of policies and such under our JPA agreement. The anti-harassment policy covers a lot of the basics, although with some customization for our organization. As you know, our organization is relatively unique in the fact that it doesn't really have employees per se. It has officers, including yourselves and the rest of the members of the board of directors, and independent contractors, me, Janie, and Shali. So we don't have employees per se. And so we did do a little bit of tweak on the anti-harassment policy, but it includes many of the features that you would expect of such a policy. There's a reporting mechanism. There's the potential for investigations, and the policy does lay out potential consequences for violations of that policy. For officers, there's the policy of removal from the board of directors. And for any contractors, there's also the possibility of cancellation of their agreements with the organization. So that's kind of the high level sort of takeaway or high level summary of the policy for your consideration. And if you did have the chance to peruse the policy, we're certainly open to any comments you have. Somewhat relatedly, I just want to briefly touch on another thing that you've probably dealt with in your own respective jurisdictions. So I did want to let you know that we did look at whether the organization, the cities association, would need to adopt a workplace violence prevention program or prevention plan. I believe all your jurisdictions have done that. We've evaluated that subject and we've decided and advised that we, the Cities Association, don't need to adopt a separate one. Because it's to the extent that we ever actually gather in a single location, a physical location, that would be in one of your respective jurisdictions where the plan or program would already be in place. So it's our evaluation that we don't need to adopt a separate one as a JPA. So with that, I welcome your comments or feedback.
So on the last note, does that mean that on a yearly basis, we, at least historically now, have been moving the location of the meeting? Is that violence update education need to go to the board members that are normally attending that monthly meeting, or is it just because, as long as it's in place for the building / city in residence for the year, everything is fine?
I think everything is fine as is, but if we want to provide sort of an additional layer of protection, we can certainly provide a separate training or sort of circulate a sort of FYI to the council members as we move from location to location. I think that would be a policy decision for you all.
And I'll just quickly add, Larry, even if you have more questions, I'm just going to jump in. As I was listening, that was going to be one of my questions about training. And I think it's something that we should consider. Like any other organization, when you roll out a policy like this, it's nice to have even just, a Q&A where people read it and if they have questions to understand the application. So curious what the attorneys think about conducting a training. We are a Brown Act body, but it follows up on what Larry was asking.
Yeah, and certainly we could do a training on both the anti-harassment policy once it's adopted and workplace violence prevention, and we could do sort of both. If that's
workplace prevention would have to be general since we don't know if each city has the same one, right? Because you're saying, right? But to that point, do we need to check with our city managers and city attorneys that they're comfortable with us using their policy, or we take so two things. We just take the position that we're having the meetings. That's the policy that will apply. And then the second question to that is, should we have that documented somewhere? So in this anti-harassment policy, should we drop like a last section stating that clearly, that the workplace, anti-harassment violence, whatever the title is, policy, association policy shall be wherever the venue is, or something to that effect. So what are your thoughts on those two things?
I just saw Jenny unmuted, so maybe I'll let Jenny jump in.
Or we could do a resolution. You could just have as a small agenda item and acknowledge that, and they could do a resolution saying that they'll follow. We could provide a copy and they could adopt that as. So I think Andrew's got great language for something like that. Kind of a formal acknowledgement that this is the policy that applies. Yeah,
and I would say for my own part, I certainly don't mind providing as an FYI our position on both issues. That I'm sort of happy to, present to the relevant city manager or city attorney. This is our anti-harassment policy, and likewise, here's our position or view on a workplace violence prevention program.
Well, I wasn't thinking so much that as we could say, because you went to Morgan Hill for the last meeting, and so this is Morgan Hill's. We'll be meeting in Morgan Hill. Here's an FYI. Here's Morgan Hill's policy. But at the beginning of the year, I think going forward, we could, in January, provide everybody with a copy of the policy that is in effect in the jurisdiction where we'll be meeting. And just even have that as an informational item. If we want to be more formal, we could do something, a resolution to acknowledge that we will be following the policy that's in place in the jurisdiction.
And just to clarify what my suggestion was, it wasn't necessarily taking all these additional steps, and that's why I appreciated the resolution suggestion. It's basically adopting a resolution as the Cities Association, explaining that our workplace violence prevention policy shall be the policy of the jurisdiction in which we're having a meeting, period. Like that would be the resolution. It's posted on our website. We don't have to reiterate it. Wherever we house our anti-harassment policy, that's where this resolution would be. That's all I was suggesting, and that's why I like the resolution idea.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Charlie.
If it's appropriate, I do an orientation every January because there's new board members. So I could add a slide about this, or if you want to do more of a training, we could do a few slides on this. But can I add a slide saying exactly just that? We adopted a resolution that says.
And also do the anti-harassment training, have a slide incorporated in an annual training. I like Charlie's suggestion about making it part of our annual training.
I like that too, because suddenly I was thinking of all the JPAs. You need to talk to them. That board members change every year. And so when Jenny went in the direction of, for whichever way, as long as we do something every year, I think it's a good reminder, because every city has nuanced everything. All kinds of policies are somewhat different, and we get so busy with doing things. A reminder is always good, because everybody has great intentions. Life happens, we are doing too many things. A reminder like that would be just fabulous.
And I like Charlie's suggestion about just
Yeah.
making it part of the annual training at the beginning.
Yeah, the annual orientation. I love that. Totally support that.
I'll get Jenny and Andrew to look at the slides before.
And then Gabe, any perspective from the city managers on doing something like this, workplace violence prevention policy?
I think that's a good idea to do it the way you suggested.
And I do appreciate, there was one comment, that take it to the city managers and city attorneys. Does that make sense? Or
We can, I think the city manager will be fine. I mean, for the most part, these are largely the same. There'll be some definitional differences. I don't think this is something the city managers would feel differently about. I suspect they would like the resolution
I
idea.
can bring it up during my update when I have a little agenda item. I can bring it up, but this is what we're.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear.
And you know, I'll mention it later at the end about the city manager's role in this as well. I'm jumping back to BAFA, but I'll put that on hold. Any other questions for Andrew and Jani on the anti-harassment policy or the workplace violence prevention policy? Okay, so
Can I ask a question on that?
yes, Jani.
For the anti-harassment policy, are you envisioning a training or anti-harassment training, or just introduce the policy and explain what the policy is?
I was thinking, and we were calling it, initially I was thinking of training because I do this in my other roles. But I like Shali's, you all know this, but I like Shali's suggestion about as part of orientation. So it's your latter point, Jani, which is just an overview. As a citizens association, we have this here are the high points. If you have questions, contact our attorneys.
I like that. If we can include, I haven't had time, Andrew, thank you for sending it. Sorry, I was in a different meeting. Haven't read the policy. I assume it's totally fine. No reason to think otherwise. So do we add that somewhere? The document that he sent on the,
So it's gonna be on the board meeting. It's gonna be on the,
in the orientation?
No, the September board meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
But
Great.
on a yearly.
On a yearly basis?
right, as part of your orientation package,
Okay,
yes.
great,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for raising that. And I apologize, Tina. I know that we sent it with relatively short notice. But certainly if the executive committee is comfortable with it, we can tee up the adoption of the anti-harassment policy for the next full board meeting in September. And if you don't mind, we can certainly work with Shali on a separate resolution regarding sort of our stance or position on the workplace violence protection programs as well. So we can sort of tee both up for board adoption, and then per Shali's suggestion, sort of build that in on an ongoing basis, that in every January meeting as part of the orientation, we sort of highlight both so people know where we are on both issues.
Our goal obviously was to have all of this done by November. And so I like the idea of bringing the initial draft forward September, just in case we have questions, feedback, more work to be done. We still have our October meeting. So I definitely think, and I haven't reviewed it either, got off a plane an hour ago. But knowing our board, I'm sure you're gonna get feedback. I may have feedback, right? And so it's nice bringing the draft in September.
Okay.
And then giving ourselves a buffer month.
Okay, thank you.
There is something about attorneys who like to give feedback on attorneys.
Where is attorney?
Sorry, I'm joking with Nisa and Javed, who's not here right now.
Oh, Javed will have comment. All right, any public comment? Anything else, Andrew and Jenny?
No, I think that's all the direction we need for now. Thank you.
Thank you. What's next on the agenda?
City Selection Committee update, rules and regulations.
Yeah.
So in the formation of the JPA, I learned some very interesting things about city selection committees. And I mentioned this to Larry, that city selection committees are supposed to have their own rules and procedures. And so my thought was that I've prepared a draft that I could circulate. I wanted to know who to circulate those to. Obviously, I was thinking Larry as the chair of that committee. And they could be presented at the next city selection committee for adoption. And most of them are very specific provisions that are found in state law. And I've looked at what the state law requires and then what we've put in our bylaws and JPA. And I think it's 4 or 5 pages about meetings and how the voting process and what's a quorum.
And Jenny, this just underscores how, and I'll just say it again on the record, how awesome it is to have you and Andrew on board.
Yeah.
And I've said to people, we were, I don't want to say informal organization, but we definitely weren't a JPA before this year. And so the things we may have done in the past, they're in the past. And so we're learning from them. And now that we're a JPA, we're going to improve upon them. And so this to me is another example of things we may have done differently in the past, which maybe we should have done differently in the past. And we're improving upon them as a JPA. So thank you for your leadership here, seriously, in steering us in the right direction. And I think this is the right year to do it, right? We're starting out strong as a JPA. We're not finding out, 3 years into being a JPA that we're doing things wrong as a JPA. So really appreciate that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Jenny, that makes total sense to me. Go ahead and send me the draft. Send it to Nisa also, just so that.
Okay. That was my plan. CC Nisa. Okay.
No, you're not gone at that point. What are you talking about? But yeah, so yeah, I think that's the best thing. And then what's the approval process for that? Is it at the selection committee or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they have to adopt them.
Okay.
So we probably do a majority vote and resolution.
Does that need to go to the attorneys also for each of the cities, or is that a standard? Should that be a standard thing? I'm just trying to get a better idea.
I would defer to you on politically whether or not that's necessary, but it's basically bylaws, and we didn't send the bylaws to each of the agencies. We had the board do them.
Right.
And we left it up, just to clarify for the record, we left it up to each board member, if it's the practice or expectation of their city, to bring it back to their council, city manager, city attorney. So we're not saying don't, and we're not discouraging it. It's just not a requirement, right?
And I think one of the challenges is, and we can talk about the timing, is that the city selection committee really only meets twice a year.
When's the next meeting, Sean?
It's our October meeting, October 10th, I think.
Because we don't have a lot.
October 10th. Yeah, then I'll talk about my thing.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
All
Okay. So.
But it wouldn't take very long to get them in shape to be able to send out to everybody. I need Larry's input on what they currently do in 2 respects. And they're pretty simple.
Okay.
We'll look at them. If you send it to, we'll look at them and then hopefully, so you, ideally, Larry and Jenny, you want them adopted by October?
Yes.
At the October
Well,
meeting?
at the meeting, and then the first item would be that, and then we move on to whatever appointments we need to do from a selection standpoint. Yes.
Jenny, will you copy me on that email?
Yes.
Because I always find new things that I'm supposed to do. No,
Well,
because we don't have any city selection committee, so it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be.
And there is a posting requirement. So I've highlighted that too. So it's good to copy you.
Yeah, thank you.
The posting requirement is different from.
Typically what we've been doing is 4 weeks before the October meeting, I'll send out an email to all city council members saying that these are the positions that are open and send your letter of intent to me or interest to me.
Well, what's the rule? What's the requirement?
I don't know.
It's actually a notice requirement that they have at least 2 weeks notice prior to the date of any meeting to each member of the committee. So it has to be done. It's not the same as the Brown Act. It's a 2-week notice requirement. I was curious whether we were doing that now.
But what Shirley described is actually different. She was sending, this is basically sending your letters of interest if you want to apply. But posting it, I think we were just complying with the Brown Act like we did with our other.
Yeah, exactly.
We weren't doing 2 weeks notice. We were just.
No, we
doing
weren't. I've never heard of 2 weeks.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're on this.
All right, any public comment on, this item?
No.
The city's elections committee? All right, what's next?
Potential speakers. Oh, sorry, go
Just
ahead.
a quick comment. Because you mentioned this, under this item, I'll say the same thing. Jani and Andrew, this is very helpful. I'm not just talking city selection thing, but everything else that we are doing under JPA, since the term city attorneys came up earlier, I will make a general remark. My guess would be most city attorneys are much happier today with the formation of a JPA. Intuitively, I would think it keeps cities in a safer zone legally. And therefore, I would think all the work that is being done here, my just thinking aloud here, that city attorneys would be happy. So thank you for all the fabulous work you're doing.
Our pleasure.
All right, next, identifying speakers.
Yeah, there's only one, Ambassadors of Compassion. So I put the brochure in the packet, if you see it, but I can also pass it around right now. It's a Rotary Club program to help at-risk youth develop resiliency, mental health impacts. I read through this is just my opinion, I read through the brochure. It seems like it would be most appropriate for this to go to the school boards and the schools because it's a school-based program. The way that this came to us is that someone from this organization had made a presentation at a Rotary Club meeting. And at the Rotary Club meeting, I believe it was Councilmember Alahi who said, you may want to put this in front of the cities association. And while there is a little bit of a touch on mental health, working with at-risk youth isn't A, one of our priority areas, and B, just having read it, it seems more appropriate to go the school board association route instead of the cities association. So, but I'm gonna leave it up to you. If you would like them to come in front of our group and give a little presentation, up to you.
Let me just add to what Shirley just said. So we get requests all the time, and I know Tina has had organizations reach out, myself and all of us, to get on the Cities Association agenda. And there are times I make the unilateral decision to say it's not appropriate for Cities Association. There are others that I think are appropriate, but we just aren't able to fit them in our agenda. This example, we had the request from both Councilmember Elahi and Steve Preminger. So it came from 2 different people. And when Shirley and I talked, we couldn't figure out if it was really a Cities Association item. So I didn't want to say no unilaterally, and I didn't want to put it on our waiting list or parking lot of items because I wasn't sure it fit on the Cities Association. So I said, let's get the thoughts of other executive committee members on this item. Do you think it's a Cities Association item? Not that we need it, because we got the request from Steve Preminger and
I can pass this around if you all want to see.
I didn't want to make the decision on my own.
Right.
My question would be, just to jump in, what is it, number one? And number two, what are the other possibilities? Because, okay, unbiased, without even looking at it,
Right.
I would say to stick, coming from a fairness perspective, the closer we as cities associations stay within what the priority zones are, in the longer term, it's easier for us to feel less awkward if we have to say no to someone.
Right.
That's my overall. And I'm pretty sure this is a great organization. I have not even looked at it. So that's my unbiased
It does
statement.
look great. I'm trying to think of what the ask to the cities would be. Like if you come in front of our city council members, our mayors, what is your ask? And I think what they're looking for is for business associations to help chip in towards the cost of a scholarship to attend these programs, or make connections with superintendents and principals. So like if you, when I read through the brochure, so it didn't sound like an ask that was very specific that they could only get through addressing city council members.
But the city council is kind of leaders and collaborators within the community, so, and it does meet with our mental health goals, so I don't see, when I read through it, I'm like, oh, I didn't see it as specific to schools. You know, we try to help out however we can in the community, so I thought that was fine. On a secondary note, I was hoping that we would be tying to Stand Against Hate Week, which is a week after our meeting. So I don't know if there's any, and I know it's a short turnaround from a speaker standpoint or whatever, but Stand Against Hate Week is, I really just was looking at it, but I think it's the week after our next meeting.
So I'll tell you what we are planning for September, not that you can't have multiple themes.
Yeah.
September, when Assemblymember Pellerin was at our meeting, she told us September is being treated as Mental Health Month.
Okay.
So that's why you see the 998 mental health item. So we were already, and I see right on my notes, resolution mental health. I was going to propose that we do a Citizens Association resolution related to mental health.
Right.
So that was gonna be the focus of our meeting. Having said that, we could do two things. We could do a resolution also standing against hate.
Right. It's just, and it's a yearly kind of call out to a certain degree. I'm not sure, there are organizations that we could conceivably bring in. And this was interesting when I first read compassion, I thought it was a different type of compassion, not mental health, which is kind of an interesting thing from that standpoint. One of the organizations that pre-COVID I was working with that are still around, but I haven't made it back to them is Civic. Civic?
Are they local?
Yes.
What do they do? What's the program?
It's,
Never heard.
let's see if I can find it. I'm not gonna remember what it stands for.
While he's looking.
Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah, I'll just fill in. For mental health, of course, if you need people for 5 minutes each, I can always reach out to NAMI guys again. They were there last year, and I'm not
Right.
I'm not pushing that we,
Right.
I'm just saying.
Fine, because we have someone from Santa Clara County and it's a nice link because it's the group on our mental health initiative in June. Remember, we listed 998. It's the county helpline for 998. We're having them talk to us about how it's working. Because remember, we were driving people to that number.
Yeah, and I heard the 998, but I haven't seen the draft agenda for the next board meeting.
Sorry, it's in the packet.
So that's why, I mean, we're
Which I think
kind of, that'll be helpful if you do.
The other thing is, when Nita and I had our planning meeting, we talked about putting ambassadors for compassion on our resource page.
Yes. On the mental health. So at a minimum, we
Okay.
said, because we got it from, because both Elahi and Greminger asked, I'm like, I feel like we should.
Yeah.
So at a minimum, I was going to suggest we put it on our mental health resource page that Sonia helped create. But also I wanted to make sure I wasn't making the decision by myself not to invite them.
So Civic is the Silicon Valley Interreligious Council. Builds interreligious harmony and understanding so to promote a just and compassionate society in Silicon Valley.
Never heard of them.
So Cortese was very active before he got on the Senate. So when he was still at the county level, he was active, and this is, I was active pre-COVID, and then, I would go to their meetings, but it's a wide group of different religious organizations, and I thought it might be a good
Timing too, if you think about
timing
it.
from,
Yeah. Do you want to weigh in on that?
well,
I just came from a convention where you're just like.
understood.
No, but to your point, let me get here. I'd never heard of them. I could research them. I don't feel strongly, Larry, about putting them on our September agenda.
Okay.
But it's good to know about this group. I do like the idea if there's support on the committee to do a resolution united against hate. We've done those in the past, but we would do 2 resos. And that kind of addresses, and if they have good language on their website, we could adopt it so they can know that Citizens Association is taking similar positions. But I don't feel strongly about, I can be outvoted.
Fine. I'm just educated. It's like
And I've never heard of
I haven't touched base with him for I've seen one or two of their members at events, and they keep inviting me back, and they're active, and it's especially when you talk about, you know, the anti-Asian, all the anti-hates that, you know, the organization groups that kind of we've been trying to work with. This is kind of across those cultural
All
boundaries.
represented and
Anyway,
worth looking into. I mean, learning more about this organization. Any questions, comments, public comment on?
No public comment. Can I add one more thing? I just wanted to update everyone that I did speak to Carl Gardino from Toronto Wireless. Carl is very busy traveling, but he would like to come sometime next year to present or to.
So he's going to the next year calendar.
Yeah.
Because just so you know, Shali has a working list of or agendas, and so whatever we're not able to put on a certain meeting, we have it in the parking lot. And I think Carl's on that list. I know we're gonna take him off our parking lot for 2024 and put him on Larry's. So we'll give you all this stuff for next year. So yeah.
Yeah. And then just the other things, the state law and fleet electrification that I was supposed to follow up with you on. So that's another thing on the parking lot.
That'd be a good one.
October.
Well,
Remember,
Yeah.
remind us and what.
State passed a law about requiring electrical vehicle purchases by percentage. And San Jose is trying to interpret it differently. And this is very exciting now, this time. Because they're gonna drive what happens largely.
Yes. Do we need to do it in October? I
So
unfortunately.
September is.
I know,
Yeah.
I tend to be here October as we talked. That's the meeting.
In or no?
I will be in an aircraft because the flight
At the
is,
time?
yeah, the flight is, I think, 5 to 7:30 or 5:30 to 7:30.
Okay.
So I'll miss everything. That's why we were talking. So we'll come to that, Larry. We're talking of canceling black, doing cities selection in October, which works beautifully for city selection.
Right.
And so I will request Yan to do both the meetings.
Okay.
And being SCCE board chair, if at all there is.
You wanna do it in November? Is November too late? So she wants to be here when you do that topic.
If at all,
Is November too late? November's our last meeting.
or is November
And
tight?
I can just very briefly tell you about our meeting document. Right now in October, we have the BCDC Regional Shoreline Adoption Plan, which I believe, yeah. Presentation of slate of new officers, which is pretty quick. Update from the city selection committee chair of the new appointments. Feedback on the RENA process. We thought about that. Something like more robust tobacco, et cetera, ordinances. We may want to bring that up. Bay Area Host Committee, we bumped them from August to September, now to October.
Are you guys familiar with this host committee? I only learned about it.
talking about, go ahead.
No, Shali, you go ahead.
Okay, so the Bay Area Host Committee, so you know, typically when like the Super Bowl had come to Santa Clara, only the city of Santa Clara really benefited. But there's a new movement now to unite the entire Bay Area via sports. And so they want to bring more high-profile sporting events here, including FIFA World Cup, which I think is in 26.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 60, and the NBA All-Stars game, which I think is next year. And so what they're hoping to do is, because all of these teams and they're going to be housed in various cities around the Bay Area, it would be a boon to like small businesses, to CBOs. So they want it to be of a benefit to the entire Bay Area and not just the city where
So
the
you're
event.
promoting the events, Sunnyvale downtown restaurants will be listed, Los Altos,
Exactly.
hotels, we're all in it together, yeah.
Yeah.
And so two people who are close to the Citizens Association are on the planning committee, Chappie,
Yes, so he would.
and Ed Shikata's, Ruth Shikata.
Yeah,
And so, yeah.
it's a newly formed committee, so.
and so they know us well,
What,
and they wanna come talk to us.
what power do they have? Are they just convening? Are they, who's deigned them to do this?
Oh, gosh.
And they-
I do have
I can
a.
text Chappie. Or did you?
I don't-
So they had a big presentation at the city managers meeting. So I can forward that presentation to you. They'd probably give something like that to us, but they were formed by like, I forget now, but there are other organizations.
But that's always a question of who's the umbrella above everything else. So just wondered, or is it, you know, unusual? Okay, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before, so, And because of time, Charlie, I'm gonna
Sure.
but to this point, Larry, I just want to make sure I understand what your request is. This is on the tentative agenda for October, so we will still have an opportunity for the executive committee to approve the October agenda. So before the executive committee October meeting, we should get you that information.
I'm completely fine with them coming forward.
Chappie Larry doesn't want it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see Chappie in the room. But no, the big thing is, it's not, so it's the economic portion, but there's also the safety portion that's kind of going on in the background too.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, if possible, make sure that both of those voices are being heard, because it's a regional effort to deal with, all the safety issues, the trafficked women, all these sorts of things that happen along with Super Bowl and, and FIFA, that is now a month as opposed to just a weekend, is going to be an interesting effort. And, what I've heard in talking to the city manager for Santa Clara is there's not funding yet. The feds aren't funding it, and what's happening. So there's two, and it's just, I wanted to see, is it just the economic portion, and kind of, yes, let's spread the wealth and also make sure that, the Bay Area isn't a single city, it isn't just San Francisco or Levi's Stadium or whatever, but the other half of that is, what are we doing regionally across, the different cities to make sure that we're prepared for all the effects of having large sports events. So.
She did touch on public safety, but she didn't mention anything about trafficked humans, so
Okay.
I don't know.
And that's always a case
Yeah.
that we
Big
had the
events.
same thing for the last Super Bowl. That was a big effort that from a Fed standpoint that was worked on, but.
I'll forward those slides to you.
Yes, I'd appreciate that, but I have no
I'm
problem.
gonna have it on the October executive committee.
I think it makes sense, and it makes sense to bring it to the board just to educate them, and, the sooner we can be part of that dialogue, the more we can promote our different cities, so.
I actually think the questions you've already raised, Larry, are the types of questions they want to hear, right? Like, what are the common things that we should all be aware of and working on? Okay, so I'm gonna close this item. Any public comment on this item?
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's seg to the draft agenda for the board meeting. And everybody has it in the packet. I mean, I helped to develop it. One of the things that I had Shali do is add the estimated time for each item. And, our Cities Association board meetings are 2 hours, and I try to stay at 1 hour and 45 minutes, knowing full well everybody will go over. So we're excited about this meeting. We have James Williams, who's our county executive, coming. We mentioned the 998 mental health. We're looking at your agenda. Top 5, which will be quick. That's myself and Margaret, and it's basically what I did in my president update today. Shali, the fire chief, is that confirmed?
So I asked Ed to give me a name, and I haven't heard back from Ed yet. And I did kind of drop your name. I said, Lisa told me to ask you. Oh, Lisa.
Wait, Chicago?
Sure.
Did you try Steve?
Clemenger?
Yeah,
Oh,
Steve may know too.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
County fire chief?
I don't know if it's the county fire chief or the fire chief for.
Which one are you looking for? What?
So there's a fire chief organization.
Yeah.
There's a chief, so.
Oh,
I think Palo Alto.
That speaks to this topic.
I think the sheriff might be from Palo Alto. I don't know. Yeah.
So yeah, not sure how much dropping my name will help with Ed, but if he doesn't get back, I think Steve may know too.
Okay, I'll make
Did
it.
they,
Or
did they
maybe
write a letter to us,
Fire chief?
the fire chiefs? Because they have the people they want representing their position, which is maybe not necessarily the people that I don't know.
So maybe we give this to Gabe, if Gabe doesn't answer. Let's ask, so Gabe, do you mind helping us track
Let me
down
see if I can, find out who's on the list.
which one? The rural metro?
Yeah.
Steve
Or-
Harbinger. So it's all related to what's happening with rural metro and responding to emergencies. That's what this broader item. And so it's two things. And how we can go back when James got, appointed as our official county executive, he said he wanted to come and, to meet all of us. And then it worked out well that he had done a presentation to the city managers on this topic, and it was well received. And so we said, maybe that's a way for him to come and talk to us, but on a substantive issue.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
It's
What's the
also,
date of the meeting, sir? That we want to
September
make?
12th.
12th, yeah.
if I may jump in, 2 nights ago, Saratoga had our yearly joint session with the law enforcement for us, county sheriff, and also the fire, which is county fire, again, for us. So we had Sheriff Johnson for the first time. I've seen the sheriff there at this meeting, along with the assistant, and, this is just around the conference table, so really good to see that from law enforcement.
Right.
At the same time, we had county fire, or county fire that represents Saratoga and a bunch of other cities. This issue of the rural metro, the ambulance.
Ambulance service.
Yeah, that issue came up and there were questions asked. Hardly anybody attends that. I can't recall who asked that question, but somebody did in our row. There were only 2 residents, so it was either council member or one of the residents or someone. So it's an important issue, and I know with seniors. So it would be good if we could get someone. I am just supporting that, whoever.
We'll definitely get some, I just don't
Yeah.
know.
Gabe will help us.
Yeah.
Is your fire chief Bowden?
The county fire chief is, Kirkwood, a woman. I'll give you the name.
So, okay, so yeah, this gets really complex, but we're not impacted by that.
Yeah, yes.
And they've actually indicated they would like to stay out of the county here, so.
The county fire
Yeah,
wants
let me coordinate back and I'll find out who gave the presentation to us and then let them.
This is something that Margaret feels very strongly about, because I think she's got a personal connection with having to call 911 for her father, and then it was just a big delay. Something, I don't know.
Yeah, to Margaret and Tina's point, this is something residents care about, and I know the county is working on, so it's a perfect topic for Citizens Association. And it'd be nice to get the fire representative.
Okay. So
Oh,
I'll work with you.
I'll coordinate back with you.
Okay, so then on the agenda, so we already talked about 998, Prop 5. We'll do, so just quick update, and you'll also see that we have a closed session scheduled for September 12th. It's going to be a very quick closed session. The attorneys and I will talk about a possible amendment with the board and then to the contract, and then we'll decide on the proposal and vote on it in the open session. And so the closed session, we're still gonna have right before a meeting. It should be quick. And then we'll just have that open session item as item number 7. Anything you want to add to that, Janie or Andrew?
No, I think you covered it. You and I probably have some work to do beforehand.
Okay.
Are we doing the closed session pre-7 and then the standard meeting at 7? Is that your goal?
Great
6:45,
question.
or?
It didn't decide if it was gonna, because we know it should only be at most, honestly, 10 minutes, but we could start at 6:45 that day. We'd have to send notices. We have to tell people.
If we start closed session at 6:45, does that mean that the whole meeting is now a special meeting?
No, we're just changing the time and getting the proper notice. But you know what's nice too? We don't have a LAC meeting in September, right?
So I was going to ask you, do we cancel LAC in September and October and in November? When does LAC meet one more time?
November, because that's when you do the wrap up.
So we do both, because Charlie sent me that question and that's what I recalled,
Yeah.
but I wasn't 200% sure that I do LAC meeting in November, and I do LAC wrap up to the board in November as well.
Yes, but we also have you on this agenda because you still have to report on the letters that we sent. We do want you to report in September what you've done, and then in November, you'll talk about the results of our work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so no LAC meeting till November.
Yes.
And my update to the board in September, and then the year wrap up to the board in November.
Yes. And so that ties in well, because without a LAC, asking people to come at 6:45, I don't feel like we're pressing on your time. But we need to give them, since everybody's so used to coming at 7,
Yeah.
let them know it's gonna be 6:45 for a quick closed session,
Okay.
and then we'll start board at 7. And then the nominating committee, I'll be announcing the nominating committee, so I plan to do some outreach. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, for the nominating committee, I know we changed the bylaws. Is it no more than 2 executive committee members, and it's a 3-person committee? And you can check it, because that's what I recall, I could be wrong, and so my thinking is, obviously Larry as incoming president, I would ask him to serve with me on the nominating committee, and then I'd pick a non-committee member. That's my plan, Jenny and Andrew. If that doesn't align with the current bylaws, please let me know.
I'll double check.
No, I believe it does. So three
Okay.
members, one who's a current exec committee member and one who's not.
And who is the third?
So I'll talk to Larry to see.
Oh,
who
the
we-
third could be either.
No, third has to be a non-executive committee person.
Yeah.
So two executive committee.
Yes.
Right,
Oh, and third, okay, I get it.
so we'll
Okay.
figure out who the third is.
Sure.
Okay, and then VTA update, there's been a lot going on at VTA. Sergio has wanted to talk to us for months. He's the vice chair of VTA, as you all know. And so when we went through the calendar, we thought we had time in the calendar to give him 15, did we say, oh, we gave him 20. Okay, and then LAC, Gabe, Shali.
So for that one for LAC, just so that I am very clear, we are talking September board meeting and I'm doing LAC update, which is essentially all the work that has happened since August 8th meeting, the position letters, resubmittals, and some other ones.
I would do an update of all you've done and all the bills that got killed, because by now you know what's killed and what's moving forward, what's been taken off the suspense, but so that's the
Okay.
kind of update.
Okay,
And then November, we have the results.
okay, so some of the results are already in, like the safety, so I can include all of that
Yeah.
okay.
Because in November, what you'll have are the ones that, because remember, the governor has until X date in October to sign them. So even though you started early with some,
Right.
by October, we'll have the full package.
Yeah, October 12th, and the cutoff date for the governor to sign is let me go back. September 12th is the board meeting. And September 30th is the last day for the governor to sign. So on September 12th, this board meeting, LAC update.
You wouldn't have the final package.
I don't have the final, but I have some results
Okay.
and some bills that are killed and all the bills that we have taken position letters on.
Okay.
And in November, there'll be some overlap with the same thing, year-end wrap-up.
And then as you turn it over to, and that's something the nominating committee will discuss about, because, yeah, the composition, LAC chair, all that stuff we'll discuss as a nominating committee and putting together that process.
Okay, that'd be great. Just a quick remark, and Shelley, please feel free to add more. Carly has been very helpful in keeping us updated with the matrix, so.
Carly is Palo Alto's lobbyist.
Yeah.
Townsend.
And Carly Townsend, she was one of the speakers at the last meeting, last LAC meeting, the one we had in Morgan Hill.
And it's good to recognize these resources where they're not charging us.
Yeah.
We have the Mountain View lobbies, we have the San Jose lobbies. I hate the word lobbies, but that's what they are. And now Palo Alto, just basically giving us pro bono services, which is great. That's the intent of the Cities Association. So it's been really helpful.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, so that's it. Any questions, comments on the September 12th meeting? And so it will be back here in Los Altos, not at the county
I
building.
did confirm.
Okay.
Yeah, this room.
And did you confirm that Susan had her staff cancel theirs?
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yes,
She
right.
goes to what, let's just close that loop because they had reserved a room for us there.
And just a quick question, on consent, we're disbanding the BAFA subcommittee. Do you need a resolution or is that sorry. Janny and Andrew, on consent, we have to disband the BAFA subcommittee. How do we do that? Is that a vote? Is that a resolution? What do you suggest?
I think because we established it by a mere vote, we should dissolve it by a mere vote. And I think in the future, it'd be nice to have a resolution, but we did it pretty informally at that meeting in Morgan Hill because of the timeline.
Should it be on consent or do you want to see that as a separate agenda item?
I don't think it has to be a separate agenda item. Andrew, do you see anything different?
Yeah, I think consent is fine.
Great. No, most short-lived subcommittee we've ever served on.
Yeah. Good.
My one quick, just reminder request to Shelley, the earlier she can get a staff person, she doesn't need permission. I think that will be helpful. There's a lot going on and getting more busy. So So we've seen something else on that.
Yeah.
Just.
And that's something, you know, when we do, we can definitely encourage her to get a staff person, because Shali has the budget to hire staff.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's it. Any public comment, questions on this item? Okay, we'll close it. And then next, is it the city manager's report?
Oh, yes.
So, obviously, we're all talking about the BAFA. That was surprising. Informally, what we're talking about is, so everyone knows, 20% of our membership retired over the summer. Saratoga hired a really good city manager, Matt Morley, very well respected. Los Gatos just announced Chris Constantine. He's from SoCal, from San Dimas, has a very good reputation down there. Chris Constantine from San Dimas. I think it's Constantine.
So is Laurel, did she step down?
Yeah, so she's retired. Yeah.
Retirement party?
Hmm?
Was there a retirement party for Laurel?
Yeah,
Did I miss her?
I'm not sure how widely it was.
Okay.
Somebody mentioned, and then I said, remind me, and I don't know if I missed it.
And we know, Sunnyvale city manager also retired. And so our last meeting going into break was this download of maybe 70 years of combined public experience. It was really impressive. And so we're happy with the hires. We know we've got Sunnyvale left, but it'll change the makeup. Oh, has it been announced?
We released the staff report last night, so
Okay.
Tim Kirby, who's been with the organization for
Oh, great.
29 years.
That's awesome.
Our last director of finance, but moved up from his first job after San Jose State was with the city, and he's been there for 29 years.
Cool. That's
But knows, especially finance and budget, knows all portions of the organization. So we'll be approving that in his contract on Tuesday.
And when's the last day for your current one?
He left at the end of June.
Oh.
So we appointed our director of finance as interim, about a month and a half.
Not Tim.
Tim.
Oh,
yes.
oh,
And
okay.
then basically hired him as the.
Got it. Okay.
So that's a good hire too. So we're very happy. We'll be a complete group again. But it was a lot. It's a lot of change for us. So I'm sure that'll be reflected. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
3 retired end of June.
Tina, Matt Morley, very nice guy.
That's a really good hire. Yeah. I said, that's a really good hire. Matt White is really
Let's take the
good.
credit.
He was the assistant in Cupertino.
Exciting times.
Thank you for the feedback.
Good. I don't know if this is an appropriate question. I'm looking at my attorney. What's the gender breakdown now for our city managers?
The what?
Gender breakdown. Like, because Laurel's gone. Oh, Kimbra.
Kimbra and Christina Turner in Morgan Hill.
Amber Christina, San Jose city manager.
Oh, Jen.
Jen.
Yeah.
Not where it should.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations. All right, next, Shali, your report.
Oh, I had something and it just literally flew out of my head. But I did send out the membership invoices. I've gotten quite a few of them already. And I thank the city managers who, and I gently reminded them to send their membership invoices.
So who has paid, which is an easier.
My city pays.
Yes, so I believe Saratoga, Sunnyvale, I believe Mountain View. I've not received from Los Altos yet. Looking at you gave me.
We have 90 days. Come on, we're not like.
I don't have the full list.
Listen, I'm gonna be calling cities out on September 12th, and my city cannot be one of the ones I'm calling out.
Well, just don't call. Simple solution.
Well, let me put it this way, if Los Altos is not on the paid list, I will not be calling out the city. And that stays here, but. Right.
Seriously.
Stop, do not ask.
Not me, I'm not saying me, I'm saying somebody on the board may ask. So my request is, friendly request, Gabe.
Deniability, do not bring out.
I was thrilled for my council meeting to see, and that's how, I didn't ask, I was just thrilled. Okay, great, we paid city association, 8,000 something, whatever.
Okay, so with that, anything else, Charlie?
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember the thing that came into my brain and left. Just as quickly. Alright, so that's it for me.
Quickly, just,
Oh, I do
personal
remember.
privilege, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I will ask, Anthony, it's okay with you, he really helped us upload the lack letters.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, I will get the remaining, I think it's only, whatever the remaining letters are uploaded.
Thank you.
And thank you to Anthony, he was wonderful.
Big thanks.
He is the best.
Big thank you. That makes a big difference when I talk to residents that this is being done. What is the value of cities association? Remember, my city was 3-2 vote to get the JPA. And it is good to be able to point, this is what we are doing, public safety, governor already signed the bills. This is the benefit of this organization. We constantly do that.
And I will tell you, so we know we have the Peninsula Division Board as well, and we work closely together. I've been on both boards. And just to show you how important Santa Clara is, or a region is, when they were signing the bills, they wanted Silicon Valley representatives there, and they also asked for a quote from Ellen, who's president, and they intentionally wanted someone from Silicon Valley to be part of it. So Ellen Kamei, president of Peninsula Mountain View, she gave a quote about the impact on our cities. I mean, she talked about more Mountain View, but like just generally our cities. So to your point, they read our letters. They do care what we think about these issues, right? So we do have, especially with something like this. Yeah.
I want to really thank each one of you for the participation in the Legislative Action Committee meetings. I was clueless at the beginning of the year. I have never. And Shali, you've been phenomenal. I've called you, I've emailed you, I've texted you because
It's a pleasure to support you.
this is a brand new subject for me. I love doing it, even the midnight times when I have to sit and do the letters. But seriously, this makes me feel
We're gonna
good.
try to recruit someone next year to relax, so let's not give too much detail of it.
It's easy.
We're gonna have to find somebody really easy. Great. Okay, thank you. The two things I'll say, presidential privilege, that I should have mentioned as part of my update. One, again, we're doing a lot of kudos and thanks, but really thanks to Ed Chicago and the city managers group for also wanting to be partners with us on DAFA. It's weird. So the thing is, yes, it got stopped for many reasons, but I actually felt encouraged based on how we were all coming, like right as we were all like getting ready to work together, they pulled it, and the city managers were right there with us, right? And so it was good. So we basically laid the foundation for when it comes back, we know who to go to and we're ready. And then the second thing is, and I'll have more on this, I may even give an update at the September meeting on our holiday party. Woo! Yeah, so we have the date. It's actually a Friday because remember at the beginning of the year, we reserved the date, and I want to make sure everybody is still holding that date.
December 13th.
Friday.
It's
Not
the
a
second
Thursday.
Friday, exactly. We changed it from Thursday to Friday.
December 13th. Friday. And normally as an organization, we select an individual who has contributed, and I can't remember what's the title, hero.
Champion of the year.
Champion of the year, and I already have a suggestion. And then we also identify an organization. And I had an organization in mind, but because BAFA didn't go forward, I don't think so. Those are things I'm gonna look to the executive committee, especially on the organization side, for suggestion. On the champion, I do have someone I'm gonna push hard for, you guys are, but for organization, I will look for feedback.
Can I put that on our next executive committee agenda?
Yes, please.
It takes a few weeks to get those awards created and all. The sooner we do it.
I have one other request right there for that flies over my mind. It's not on my agenda, December 13th. It is still showing December 12th meeting.
That's what it was on my calendar too, so I don't think it'd be.
That's why I'm nervous.
It needs to go.
And we could always, and Jenny and Andrew can weigh in too, but the reason we moved it to Friday, if I remember correctly. It's because it's a holiday party. We thought Friday would be better. Every year, apparently, we would think about a Friday, but then other events would have been scheduled. And so we wanted to lock in that date early so everybody knows that Friday is our Citizens Association event. This was at the beginning of the year when we were adopting the calendar. So to your point, and you're both executive committee members, and if you're saying this, I'm sure nobody else has it on their calendar.
It had to be listed at some point as the 12th, for sure, because.
For you to have it on.
Because I put a special CASC holiday party item, it wasn't
Right.
just.
Right. So we can discuss, and Jenny and Andrew can let us know, because remember, Jenny and Andrew, we adopted at the beginning of the year our calendar. And I do remember picking the Friday instead of the Thursday. But if the board decides on the 12th that, you know what, we want to go back to the Thursday, that's when we've most times had it, that's what's been on our calendar. Is it just a vote to update the calendar?
I just want to point out, there are two city councils that have meetings on that Thursday night, and so they're never able to come to our holiday
That's
party.
another reason, that's for the reminder.
I was just going to say that, Las Vegas.
Cupertino is one of them, and with Dolphus Hills.
He doesn't meet Thursdays.
Yeah, I think it's their, I don't know if it's their
But
organization.
that's when, but they would come to our board meeting
Silicon Valley Leadership Group normally has their holiday party.
on the 12th, on the second.
Yeah, second Thursday, or, yes, that's second Thursday, so that is a standard conflict that we've had many years in the past, and there's been arguments and positioning and all that, yeah, anyway.
But my point is, it's already August, and if most people weren't holding the 13th on their calendar, right? Do we, and I mean, I'm gonna bring it up at the September meeting to see if folks, we did vote on the 13th. So keep the 13th and remind people, please put it on your calendars. Or we go back to the 12th and everybody agrees, knowing full well there are these competing events.
I would, I am open for both. My suggestion would be a neutral suggestion. Please double check Los Altos Hills. And I don't believe, Cupertino does not meet Thursdays, but they may have something else.
Swearing in, it's not their meetings, because Los Altos Hills, correct me if I'm wrong, Gabe, isn't it the third Thursday?
That's, I was just gonna.
Yeah, it's their swearing in, because it's their swearing in that they have that night, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what happened last year with Cupertino,
Yeah.
because I'd gone for Sheila's thing, and then.
We had to run back,
Yeah,
I was there, and we had to rush over for the party.
Correct, so we
So
did.
it's the swearing in ceremony.
Third Thursday is correct.
Yeah, it's the swearing in ceremonies that they have on that special meeting Thursday.
Bottom line, can we get that information if needed?
So we need to discuss this.
Check with the cities.
So I was planning to mention that on my president's update, the party, just to remind people. Let's put it as a discussion, yeah, let's put it as a discussion item at the end. Yeah.
And my suggestion is before that, let's get some information, because people will.
What else is happening on the
Yeah.
12th?
On the 12th and the 13th.
Can I just say, I'll reach out to the city clerks before September 12th, because a lot of our city council members don't really know what's gonna
City clerks are
happen. So I'll reach out to the clerks and I'll find out if that's on the calendar, if that's okay.
That's what I meant, city staff, whoever, city clerk or whoever.
Yeah, so we have the information, so we'll change, it wasn't listed on the agenda, but it was one of the things I was gonna include as my president's update. Let's include discussion of party date,
Okay.
at the end of the meeting.
Where are you thinking of? Los Altos?
It's gonna be Los Altos, that's all I know.
Yeah, and Shally, I would suggest maybe just sending an email to the board and the city clerks, again, just to sort of get a full sense of what potential conflicts may be out there, just to speed up the discussion.
But not yet, Shally, don't send that in, so get the information and have it for the meeting on the 12th. Cause Andrew, I wanna control the chaos, like you send it out and then I just wanna be able to explain the email before we share the information.
Sure, of course, understood, thank you.
I was tempted to say as to what Andrew said, but thank you for what you just remarked upon, Lisa. Because then people will have their personal conflicting things, like Rotary or this or that or whatnot. Everybody's having Christmas parties around that time. And it becomes difficult to, then how do you pick one date over the other?
Right.
So if there is a fairness issue, then we can stick to city council meetings.
Exactly, which is
City
what she's
council
gonna
reorgs.
Yes.
Exactly. So I support what you just said, Lisa, from that angle.
Yeah.
So when we make a motion to accept the board agenda, the draft board
To
agenda,
amend the agenda to add an agenda item to discuss the holiday party. Just leave it as general, discuss the holiday party instead of doing discuss the date. Okay, so motion to approve the amended board agenda. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. All right, and with that, we will adjourn. Thank you all, 3:20. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.